The scale, the variety, particularly on Guardians of the Galaxy, is something I'd never seen before. We picked up 5 characters that I knew nothing about.
The casting brings a huge factor to all these characters because it's not just the face or the shape of people, it's their physicality, it's how they move.
Ah, scusate, non lo so usare bene questo affare.
So for Quill, we were asked to design a number of props. We had to produce his blasters, which had a lethal round from it, which was done in CGI. He has a plasma ball, which is almost a torch that he shakes and then produces an immense amount of light, so he goes into a vault and illuminates the whole set with it.
I always feel that the weapon's got to be part of the costume. If they're wearing a weapon, it belongs, and that's particularly the case with Quill.
Morirò circondata dai più grandi idioti della galassia.
Gamora is a new character, so she had to have a sword, but she had to look quite sleek.
Zoe being cast brings a huge amount. You've obviously got a very beautiful actress with an amazing body, so that means you can take it in many more ways than maybe you would otherwise.
We produced something that was probably only about 12 inches long, which clipped to a belt. You looked at it, you didn't quite know what it was. And then with CGI's assistance, she flicks it out, it turns into a full-length sword.
Le metafore gli scivolano addosso come l'acqua.
Nulla mi scivola addosso come l'acqua. I miei riflessi sono troppo veloci e l'acchiapperei.
Character Drax, we had to produce a pair of swords. The challenge there was to try and find something that suited David. We had to find something that didn't look like a toothpick on him because he is huge. We went through 5 different scales for him, eventually landing on something that was about 19 inches long, so it was governed by the length of his leg. So we had to produce scabbards which fitted into the boots.
Very, very specific trousers. Very specific. As you say, we're only dressing half the body maybe, but what a body.
Oh, diamine, tanto non avrei una vita lunga comunque.
The character Rocket is a busy little bee really, because he makes things from whatever he can find. So in this ship, so in the Milano, so he creates this Hadron Enforcer, a weapon which fires a nuclear or atomic warhead, but only explode and take out something in a 10-foot diameter. That was probably the most difficult prop we had to make, because it had to be made so to fit Quill, Drax, and Rocket to assemble it. And we also made this tiny little weenie bomb, which again he's supposed to be making up just from spare parts.
I think it's very exciting, you know, when people actually come on the set for the first time and you see, you know, everything coming together.
Look back at other movies that have been made in the past, and I'm sure people are going to liken it. This is nothing like any movie that's been made.
Peter Jason Quill, conosciuto anche come Star-Lord.
Chi lo chiama così?
Lui stesso.
Gettala, subito!
Sì, ehi, calma.
Peter Quill's not a superhero. He's just a guy who uses his cunning and his charm to get himself out of situations.
Chi sei?
Star-Lord.
Chi?
Star-Lord, andiamo, il leggendario fuorilegge. Lascia stare.
Quando ho lasciato la Terra, non sapevo cosa l'universo mi avrebbe riservato.
What attracted me to this role was really the arc of the character. Peter Quill, he's the only human in this crazy world.
Wow!
Traveling through space, getting to do whatever he wants.
Beh, io provengo da un pianeta di fuorilegge. Billy the Kid, Bonnie e Clyde, attori di fiction.
Sembra un posto che mi piacerebbe visitare.
But there's something missing in his life. And through the course of the movie, he has to learn that there's more to life than just taking exactly what you want.
In modo che possa distruggere la galassia.
Perché adesso vuoi salvarla?
Perché io sono uno di quegli idioti che ci abita.
I've been in awe this whole time. I have a hunch that we're doing something special, something that's never been done before.
Tu hai un piano?
Io ho parte di un piano. È una risata finta.
È vera!
Va bene.
Guardiani della Galassia.
Gamora is this stealth assassin.
Gamora, soldato, assassino, ricercato per oltre una dozzina di omicidi.
She's relentless, she's lethal, she's rough. She can kill you, but has a heart of gold. And I like that about her.
Non me ne potrebbe fregare di meno se resti viva o ti scannano.
Gamora is this stealth assassin. She's relentless, she's lethal, she's rough. Gamora. She's the kind of character that the first act of the movie you kind of have reservations about because she's not really allowing her cards to be read that freely.
Se lavoriamo insieme devi cercare di fidarti un po' di me.
Tu quanto ti fidi di me?
When it comes to the Guardians, they're renegades, they're radicals. Their goals are revenge and money and freedom, but deep down, they want to belong to a family.
Ho vissuto una gran parte della mia vita circondata dai miei nemici. Sarò contenta di morire insieme ai miei amici.
Va bene.
Gamora can kill you, but has a heart of gold, and I like that about her.
Ecco le loro pedine penali. Ricercato per oltre 50 accuse di furto di veicoli ed evasione dal carcere.
Rocket is the heart of the movie in a lot of ways.
This one here's our booty.
Rocket has some real anger issues. This is the kind of movie I'd like to see. There's nothing like it, that's for sure.
Che diavolo?
Groot. Di recente viaggia come pianta d'appartamento trattino scagnozzo di Rocket.
Groot is one of the strangest characters Marvel has ever attempted to put on film. Breathing life into a character, it's great.
Non esiste niente come me, tranne me.
Rocket, ricercato per oltre 50 accuse di furto di veicoli ed evasione dal carcere. Groot, di recente viaggia come pianta d'appartamento trattino scagnozzo di Rocket.
Rocket and Groot are two extraterrestrial characters. Rocket is a raccoon-like creature.
Cos'è un procione?
And then Groot is sort of a living plant. He can only say one phrase, which is,
Io sono Groot.
but when he says that, he means many different things.
Io ho un piano.
Che percentuale?
Non lo so, 12%.
12%?
Io sono Groot.
Che vuol dire meglio dell'11%?
Grazie, Groot, grazie.
Rocket has some real anger issues.
Io amo le cose semplici. Tipo, senti quanto brucia questo.
Groot is one of the strangest characters Marvel has ever put on film.
This is the kind of movie I'd like to see. There's nothing like it, that's for sure.
Oh, sì.
Marvel Guardiani della Galassia.
I basically am Drax.
Drax, detto il distruttore, da quando sua moglie e la sua famiglia sono state uccise, si è scatenato nella galassia in cerca di vendetta.
He's basically living solely for revenge. Drax is a warrior, but he's a very emotional character, and he's dealing with a lot of pain. But I love Drax. I kind of feel like Drax is now mine.
Now, an exclusive look at Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy.
We arrested these 5 on Xandar. Check out the rap sheets.
Guardians of the Galaxy does take place in the same cinematic universe that we've been building, but this movie takes it to the next level.
The Guardians of the Galaxy consisted of members, all of whom are very selfish for the most part. But they find that there's something worth fighting for.
There's the thieves, the bounty hunters, and the neglected. It's not a typical superhero movie.
We're dealing with a whole new element, which would be, outer space. The growth of these characters allows the film to kind of create its own personality and its own identity. That's always fun when you're at the frontier of something new.
I think people are going to be kind of blown away with how unique it is. There's nothing like it.
Si chiamano i Guardiani della Galassia. Fanno chiamare i Guardiani della Galassia.
There's the thieves, the bounty hunters, and the neglected. It's not a typical superhero movie.
We all meet in prison and we end up bonding through a prison break.
Va verso la torre di guardia!
Un piano proprio niente male.
Peter Quill is the only human in this crazy world. He doesn't have, superhuman strength or the ability to fly, but he uses his cunning and his charm to get himself out of situations.
Beh, io provengo da un pianeta di fuorilegge. Billy the Kid, Bonnie e Clyde, John Stamos.
Sembra un posto che mi piacerebbe visitare.
Drax is a warrior, but he's so funny.
Le metafore gli scivolano addosso come l'acqua.
Nulla mi scivola addosso come l'acqua. I miei riflessi sono troppo veloci e acchiapperei.
Gamora has a heart of gold. Even though she's lethal and very, very rough.
Stupido, non hai immaginazione.
No, non ce l'ho, è uno dei miei difetti.
Groot is one of the strangest and interesting characters Marvel has ever put on film.
Io sono Groot. Non esiste niente come me, tranne me.
Rocket is a raccoon with real anger issues.
Io amo le cose semplici. Tipo, senti quanto brucia questo.
And they come together to save the galaxy.
There's a lot of humor in this one. And a lot of heart.
Wow.
There's nothing like it, that's for sure.
Il nostro mondo sta per affrontare una grande inarrestabile minaccia. Chiamate i Guardiani.
The director James Gunn had an idea on everything. He knew what he wanted from day one. So he gave us a very detailed account of what he wanted us to see.
You're here to tell a story or to help the director tell his story. You don't have historical research, you have comic research. But it is his version of the story that he wants to tell.
The information from the comics is pretty broad. The colours and that they're using, it's a pretty broad kind of brush they're using. We had to tone it down and home it into a really big visual way.
When we were manufacturing things, we had to think of fixings and ways of holding things together that weren't from this Earth. So trying to get a different look for each planet was quite tough.
Ehi! Porco cacchio! Se il tuo unico obiettivo è uccidere Ronan, non credo che questo sia il modo migliore per farlo.
Tu non sei quello che questa squadrina ha provato a uccidere.
Beh, lei non è mica la prima donna che ha cercato di farlo.
James wanted everything to look grounded, as if it was actually believable within its world.
If you're going to put a gun on a character, it's just a gun belt, a belt and a holster. With this, it had to be part of the costume. It had to be designed by Alex, and she gave us ideas of what she would like, and then we had to try and create the functionality.
She needs to know from me where things finish so that she can dictate how far the costume should go and everything. And then she needs to know the material we're going to make it of, and then likewise I need to know how it's going to move against the skin, if it's going to rub or if it's going to work with it.
Stupido, non hai immaginazione.
No, non ce l'ho, è uno dei miei difetti.
I tend to do mood boards, which are big collage boards of any idea, any reference that I feel has to do with a character or a point in the story.
We were working together in a much more clear, way than we ever have, in a much closer way, because we needed to make sure that there were absolutely no clashes with the materials we were using, with the materials that costume and hair and makeup are using as well. Everything had to kind of work in a reasonable way.
We had more freedom because they're not so well known. But it's like doing Thor for the first time. That was the first time that had been taken to film. So it's about how to move them from the printed page into real.
He's so keen and into all aspects of the film. It's not just the story. All of the props, he wanted to be as real as possible.
One of the great things you learn through doing these films for Marvel, first time around it was, how they're going to move in it. And now you realise that you've learned a lot about that language.
Il vostro infausto trattato di pace non vi salverà.
For Ronan, we had to produce a Cosmi rod. This was essentially a staff with a large head on it. We had to try and show that it had an internal power and the ability to cast this charge of energy. We tried desperately not to make it look like Thor's hammer.
He lives in this world of the Dark Aster, which is a very sort of constructivist, brutal architecture. The challenge for him really was about how to give him the scale without making him look overbuilt.
Nebula is a little bit more difficult. She starts off with a pair of electronic staffs which are quite short, which she then flicks out, and then she clips them together to fight like a quarterstaff. That was, again, quite an interesting piece, because trying to work with stunts on what they needed is trying to make something beautiful, elegant, and practical.
Karen really went for it, and she's great to dress as well. You know, what I tried to do subtly is to give a world of the Dark Aster so that Ronan and Karath and Nebula and Gamora, they feel like they belong together, but they can be individual.
Come ti chiami? Mi chiamo Peter Quill, ok? Ciccio, calmati. Muoviti! Perché?
Ronan forse vuole interrogarti.
Karath, he has it's like a steampunk shotgun. You almost want something that's quite crude, like a pump-action shotgun.
Djimon being cast as Karath, he's got such an extraordinary body. You could put a bin bag on him and he would look beautiful. How you make him look menacing, you know, that's a different thing.
We had to create a bazooka for the Zakharin, which fires a charge of energy. These were based on something that was quite an organic structure, so the weapon grew its own armor. So as opposed to being something that's made of Kevlar or gunmetal.
Ha detto perché dovremmo credergli.
Non avrebbe altro motivo di venire per aiutarci.
Glenn Close is the top of the pyramid. She's the most powerful person on Xander. So it's about finding what does a woman in power wear in that situation and how stated does her power want to be. And John C. Reilly, he is the corpsman, so he wears a standard uniform. You know, there's quite a lot of detail specific to him.
The Novacore, we had to produce a number of props. We had to produce weaponized armbands, so we had to create these double-barreled wrist weapons.
Le guardie hanno delle fascette che permettono le entrate e le uscite. Me ne serve una.
The kiln, which was a dirty prison, was very much a grungy, toxic land. The kiln guards were really based on the Novacore, but almost left to a society that was almost forgotten. So anything we produced, like machine guns, weren't beautiful and clean and shiny. There have been times when James felt a little bit let down, that, you know, that something doesn't function as it suggested. But we are sometimes defying gravity.
I think everybody has had great fun. It's been hard work, but actually it's been a really happy, really great film.
Gamora is one of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Gamora, who's the daughter of Thanos, she's about as bad can get.
Stupido.
She's an assassin, and compassion is not something that she has learned.
Se lavoriamo insieme devi cercare di fidarti un po' di me.
Tu quanto ti fidi di me?
She grows up to be this stealth assassin. She's lethal. She can kill you, but she's trying to be a good person.
È la mia grande opportunità per staccarmi da Thanos.
La gemma è nella capsula più distante. Abbattetela!
Nebula is also a deadly assassin, which is just the coolest. She has this really interesting relationship with Gamora. They're adopted sisters, daughters of Thanos. Gamora kind of goes over to the good side, and Nebula definitely stays with the dark side.
Gamora wants to break away from it, but if she shows an ounce of fear, even her own siblings will turn on her.
Miliardi di persone scompariranno.
Sarà un onore.
Very tense household, actually.
Marvel Guardiani della Galassia.